Beneath the surface of the American countryside, under quiet hills, suburban neighborhoods, and remote mountain ridges, there is another America. One that most people will never see, never enter, and rarely think about. It has no traffic lights, no coffee shops, no open skies. It has blast doors, reinforced concrete walls several feet thick, independent air systems, and communication networks designed to function after a nuclear strike levels everything above them. This is the underground command infrastructure of the United States, and large parts of it are still operational right now. Most Americans drive past the entrances without knowing what they are. A locked gate on a forest road, a ventilation structure disguised as a utility building, a hillside with no obvious purpose. These are not abandoned relics of a distant era. They are active facilities, maintained by the U.S. military, staffed by personnel who report for duty in rooms that exist hundreds of feet below the surface of the Earth. The Cold War ended decades ago, but the network it created never went away. It adapted, expanded, and in many cases became more sophisticated than the original designers ever imagined. To understand why these bunkers exist, you have to understand the fear that built them. In the late 1940s and through the 1950s, American military planners faced a threat unlike anything the country had encountered before. A single Soviet nuclear weapon could destroy an entire city in seconds. A coordinated strike could eliminate the entire civilian government, the military chain of command, and the communication systems that held the country together. The nightmare scenario was not just destruction, it was silence. A nation with no leadership, no orders, no way to respond. The answer was to go underground. If the command structure could survive the first strike, the country could still function, still communicate, and still respond. That logic drove one of the most secretive and expensive construction programs in American history. Billions of dollars, thousands of workers, and decades of classified engineering produced a network of underground facilities.
This blueprint shows how vast and interconnected these facilities are.
Stretching across the continental United States, from the mountains of Colorado to the hills of Pennsylvania, from remote sites in the Midwest to locations that have never been publicly confirmed. What makes this story extraordinary is not just the scale of what was built. It is the fact that the mission never stopped. The bunkers were built for a war that never came, but the threat they were designed to answer never fully disappeared either. And that is why, deep below the American landscape, the lights are still on. The story of America's underground command network does not begin with concrete or blast doors. It begins with a single date, August 6, 1945. The moment the first atomic bomb fell on Hiroshima, military planners in Washington understood that every assumption about war survival and national security had to be rebuilt from scratch. If one weapon could erase a city, then no president, no general, no communication tower sitting above ground was safe. The age of underground America had begun, even if no one had drawn the blueprints yet. The early years were chaotic. The government improvised. Existing facilities were evaluated for survivability. Basements of federal buildings were reinforced. A classified relocation site was quietly built beneath the Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia, intended to shelter the entire United States Congress in the event of nuclear war. It operated in secret for decades, hidden beneath a luxury hotel where wealthy guests vacationed just floors above emergency legislative chambers, cafeterias, and decontamination showers. The contrast was almost impossible to believe, and yet it was completely real. But improvised solutions were not enough. By the early 1950s, the Soviet Union had tested its own atomic bomb. The threat was no longer theoretical. American military planners began designing a permanent underground infrastructure, one that could withstand a direct nuclear strike and keep the command structure alive long enough to manage a response. The facilities that followed were engineering achievements of the highest order, built under conditions of extreme secrecy, in terrain that made construction brutally difficult by workers who were often told very little about what they were actually building. The most famous example is the Cheyenne Mountain Complex in Colorado. Crews blasted through solid granite, creating a network of tunnels and chambers deep inside the mountain.
Blasting through granite was a monumental task, requiring precision and power.
The buildings inside were not attached to the rock. They were mounted on enormous steel springs, designed to absorb the shock waves of a nearby nuclear detonation. Every system, power, water, air filtration, communication, was independent from the outside world. The facility was designed to seal itself, sustain its personnel, and keep operating after the surface above it had been destroyed. Cheyenne Mountain became the symbol of this entire program, but it was never the only site. Across the country, similar facilities were taking shape in secret. Each one was part of a larger strategy, a distributed network designed so that no single strike could silence the entire system. If one node went dark, others would continue. The network itself was the weapon, and it was being buried deep inside the American Earth. Walk through the blast door of an American underground command bunker. The first thing you notice is not the technology. It is the weight. The feeling of millions of tons of rock and earth above your head. The air is different, controlled, filtered, recycled through systems with no connection outside. The lighting is artificial around the clock because down here there is no morning and no night. Time is measured in shifts, not sunrises. This is a world engineered not for comfort, but for survival. The construction of these facilities pushed American engineering into new territory. Standard building techniques did not apply. Every design decision had to answer one question: what happens when a nuclear weapon detonates nearby? The shockwave alone, traveling through solid rock, could collapse tunnels, shatter equipment, and kill personnel. So, engineers designed around the shock. Walls were built with reinforced concrete measured in feet, not inches.
These walls are several feet thick, designed to withstand immense pressure.
Tunnel shapes were calculated to redirect blast pressure rather than absorb it directly. In the most critical facilities, entire interior structures were isolated from the rock itself. At Cheyenne Mountain, 15 freestanding steel buildings sit inside granite chambers. They rest on a system of over 1,300 large steel springs. Each spring absorbs movement independently. During a nearby nuclear detonation, the buildings would ride the shock wave rather than resist it. They sway several inches in every direction while equipment inside continues to function. The concept sounds simple. The engineering required to make it work reliably across decades was anything but. Beyond structural design, internal systems represent a complete parallel infrastructure. Independent power generation can run for extended periods without outside fuel. Water supplies are stored in massive underground tanks. Air filtration systems remove nuclear, biological, and chemical contamination before it reaches personnel.
Massive tanks store water, ensuring survival even if isolated for months.
Food stores are calculated for weeks or months of isolated operation. Medical facilities are included. Communication equipment is hardened against electromagnetic pulse. A high-altitude nuclear detonation can generate EMP across an entire continent, destroying unprotected electronics instantly. Every system has a backup. Every backup has a backup. Engineers understood there would be no repair crews coming from outside, no supply deliveries, no outside help of any kind. Whatever was inside the bunker when the doors sealed was all there would ever be. That constraint produced some of the most disciplined and redundant engineering in American history, built into walls that most Americans will never see. The Cold War ended in 1991. The Soviet Union collapsed. The nuclear standoff that had defined 4 decades of American military strategy appeared to be over. For a brief period, there was genuine debate inside the government about whether the underground network still made sense. Some facilities were decommissioned. The Greenbrier Congressional Bunker was declassified after a journalist exposed it in 1992. This ended its operational role after more than 3 decades of secrecy. It became a tourist attraction. Visitors now walk through the same decontamination chambers and emergency broadcast studios. These were once kept ready for the worst day in American history, but the network itself did not disappear. It contracted, reorganized, and then quietly expanded again. The world revealed new threats that the Cold War planners had never anticipated. Terrorism, cyber attacks, rogue nuclear states, electromagnetic pulse weapons, and fragile surface infrastructure all pointed toward the same conclusion. Critical command functions needed protection that only depth and hardened construction could provide. Cheyenne Mountain never fully closed. After a period of reduced operations following the Cold War, it was brought back to full active status. Today, it serves as the hardened command center for NORAD and the United States Northern Command. It monitors aerospace and maritime approaches to North America around the clock. The facility tracks thousands of objects in orbit and monitors ballistic missile launches globally. It maintains communication links with military assets across the world. All this happens inside a granite mountain in Colorado designed to survive a nuclear war. Raven Rock Mountain Complex in Pennsylvania, sometimes called Site R, functions as an alternate command center for the Department of Defense. It has been continuously expanded and modernized since its original construction in the 1950s.
Raven Rock continues to expand, adapting to modern threats and needs.
It remains one of the most capable underground facilities in the American military infrastructure. During the September 11th attacks, Vice President Dick Cheney was transported to an undisclosed secure location. This location was widely reported to be Raven Rock. The bunkers built for nuclear war proved equally relevant on a Tuesday morning. The threat came not from missiles but from hijacked commercial aircraft. Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center in Virginia serves as a primary relocation site for civilian government leadership. It is operated by FEMA and maintained in a constant state of readiness. Personnel rotate through on regular schedules. Equipment is updated continuously. The facility exists for one purpose: to ensure that if Washington is destroyed, the constitutional government of the United States can continue to function from somewhere else. Decades after the Cold War, that mission has never been suspended. There is something deeply American about the existence of these bunkers. A country built on open land, on the idea of transparent democracy, on the belief that government derives its power from the consent of visible, accessible people, chose to protect itself by going invisible. By burying its leadership, its command structures, and its most critical decisions in places the public cannot visit, cannot see, and in many cases cannot even confirm exist. The contradiction sits at the heart of what these facilities represent, and it has never been fully resolved. But the impulse that created them is not difficult to understand. Every civilization that has ever faced an existential threat has tried to protect the thing it values most. For ancient cities, it was grain stores and fresh water. For medieval kingdoms, it was fortified keeps and hidden vaults. For 20th century America, facing weapons capable of destroying entire metropolitan areas in seconds, it was the chain of command. The idea that somewhere, someone with legitimate authority would still be alive, still be reachable, and still be capable of making decisions. That idea was worth billions of dollars and decades of classified construction. What has changed since the Cold War is not the logic. It is the threat landscape. The bunkers built to survive Soviet missiles now also protect against cyber attacks that could blind surface communication infrastructure, against electromagnetic pulse events that could destroy unshielded electronics across entire regions, and against the kind of coordinated strikes that modern adversaries have spent years planning. The mountain has not moved. The blast doors have not rusted, but the reasons to keep them sealed and staffed have multiplied in ways the original engineers never anticipated. There are people working inside these facilities right now. They eat in underground cafeterias, sleep in rooms with no windows, and monitor screens that track every significant movement in the airspace above the country you are standing in. They are not living in the past. They are maintaining a system designed for futures that most people prefer not to think about. Their work is invisible by design, which is precisely what makes it effective. The Cold War ended, the bunkers did not. And perhaps that tells you everything you need to know about the world above them. As long as nations build weapons capable of ending civilization in an afternoon, other nations will keep the lights on underground, behind blast doors, beneath mountains, in rooms that do not appear on any public map. America built that network first. It has never stopped maintaining it, and somewhere below the quiet American landscape, it is running right now.